Greetings. It is your girl Mel B. Cook, and I'm super excited, right? Because I told y'all I bring you people that are smarter than me so that we can have real conversations about things that truly impact our community, right? So all of us have seen everything flooding the airwaves for the last 3 to 4 months, whether it was related to COVID, whether it was related to I hate the word, but I'll call it an uprising or for the moment because riots, I don't know if I really like the word either, right? So with everything going on as far as race related issues, from Meg and Cardi dropping WAP and everybody went in an uproar, and then every man was managing another woman's vagina and the women got mad, to recently Miss Harris deciding to sign a ticket with Biden, right? So those are just a few of the things that we're going to touch on. So if you've been following me for a while, you know that I get on my soapbox for a minute and then I like divorce social media for like a month because I done got on my feelings as it relates to messaging, right? Because a lot of times we'll take the littlest bit of information and then we'll blow it up and we'll run with it. But we run with it at the detriment of our people, at the detriment of our causes. Just give you an example. I ain't gonna start them yet, Kat, but just to give you an example, we mentioned a couple weeks ago is that if Black people are really trying to protect their interests, will they vote Democrat, right? If we voted the way that we see issues and based on our conservative ways, let's go with that, would we really vote Democrat, right? So we have a variation of opinions and views. But before I get started, we're going to start off a little different, right? Because I want them to be able to introduce themselves so that you understand that we don't just have anybody sitting in front of you tonight, right? We have folks that are qualified, that have been in this game for a very, very long time, right? And so and not only have they been in the game for a long time, they've also been in these streets for a long time. They're very community focused, community driven. They have been passed up opportunities because of being outspoken at sometimes, because of being about the community and protecting our interests. But without further ado, I'll go ladies first. Ms. Catalina Byrd, introduce yourself to the folks.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me, Mel and Devin. I guess most recently this year, I was one of the Republican candidates for mayor and of Baltimore City. It's my second time running for mayor of Baltimore. First time was in 2011. I am a domestic violence advocate, a community advocate. I've recently sat on the community oversight task force, so I'm really involved with the consent decree here in Baltimore, as well as been working with BPD to improve community relations for over a decade now, long before the uprising of 2015, and just exhausted, but still trying to make a difference, basically. Oh,
Love
I
it.
used to do radio for 15 years.
I was just saying, what about the radio? What about the TV?
Yeah, I forgot. I be forgetting. I used to guest host for Roland Martin on TV1, and I was at WEAA for 5 years, and yep, that too.
All of that.
Oh,
Mr. Marc Clarke, introduce yourself to the folks.
Hey, I'm Marc Clarke, and I guess I'm a 30-year communications veteran. I working in radio mainly. I worked in St. Louis and Charleston and New York and Baltimore for almost a decade as host of Marc Clarke and the Big Fat Morning Show. Recently Allison and Marc in the afternoon on WHUR, Howard University's WHUR. We were there for almost 18 months. We just got let go. I'm bitter. No, I'm joking. No, I'm serious.
You can be bitter. It's okay.
I'm a dad. I'm a husband and dad first. I've been married for 20 years. My wife is a media personality, Allison Seymour, in Washington, D.C. She just announced on Friday that she was walking away after 20 years. So the DMV is pretty much shook on that. We got some other things in the works, including we'll do the Allison and Marc in the afternoon on 100 Hip Hop and R&B.FM, a digital platform. Like I said, I'm a community guy. I'm a dad. I'm a family advocate. I'm a father advocate, and I'm a Black man in America.
Oh, that is so loaded. That is so loaded, Marc.
A Black man
so
in
many
America.
things. You mean to tell me your skin tone qualifies you to be Black in America?
I'm a Black man in America. Man. It's interesting, and I think I figured it out, y'all.
What'd you figure out?
I think I'm telling you, I figured it out. I think the I think at the end of the day, this system, it's the system, right? The system is what we're really kind of fighting against. And I think we spend so much time spinning our wheels when it breaks down to an individual conversation or it breaks down into a personal conversation, when really we're just this infrastructure, this system we're fighting is the monster. And I think once we figure that out, we become more clear. Like Catalina just said, I'm sorry, Catalina, you just said something that just like sparked it. But it's kind of like when you start to understand those dynamics, I think it makes things different. And I think sadly, good news is this George Floyd situation has ignited something, and we've seen this happen before, and it's just so crucial that we take that and we do something with it. And sadly, I don't know if we are, because like you said, Mel, all you see all this messaging on Facebook speaks to the confusion that us as a Black community that we really do have. We're all over the place. It's like we are all over the place between Cardi B and Joe Biden being Satan and Pizzagate. It's like we got, and Kanye, we're all over the place. We're not focused at all trying to really get President Trump out of office. And then when you look at the conversations, a part of you goes, all right, y'all, now, okay, you don't like Kamala, she wasn't your pick. You're gonna vote, right? And a part that answer, I'll be honest, I'm terrified of the answer.
It was
I'm
so
voting
interesting.
for Kanye.
You voting for Kanye?
Kanye 2020. I'm down.
So it was interesting as I was having a conversation with my husband today, right? And so I like to push his buttons just a bit, right? When we're having these type of conversations, because he's like, well, people need to really show up to the polls. They need to vote. They need to make sure that we don't get Trump reelected. I'm like, I don't know if you looked around. So we're in Georgia right now, y'all. So I'm like, I don't know if you looked around. I don't know if you've been having conversations with the neighbors, but I'm not banking on us being able, as what are we, 12%, 13%, then probably another 5% of us can't. So we need more than us just to show up to these polls, right? And so we need to make sure that when we're having conversations, not just, vote for Kamala and Biden because we don't want Trump in office. Like, we have to be able to get down into some details. Let's talk about some policies. Let's talk about the economy. Like, is Biden and Kamala going to be able to help us recover from our economy, right? Because my neighbors, that's all my neighbors care about, if I'm honest. So what does that look like? What are your thoughts on that?
I think, well, my beef with that, to be honest, is that's too late now. That's the conversation we should have had. That's the conversation you had when you were trying to decide who you wanted to elect to be, the Democratic nominee. It's past that. We're done. It's over. What are you talking about? You can't even the Puffy, the entertainers are talking about we're gonna hold Biden to some. You can't hold Biden to nothing. It's too late. It's too late. This should have been a conversation. Where we were trying to decide who was going to be our nominee, and this should have been a conversation. And anybody who knows how politics work, they know that. And I think that's another thing that's so funny. It's like the old people. It's like a catch-22. The old heads who've been in too long, they know how politics works and how to get somebody elected. The young people have the passion, and the young people have the drive and the passion and the excitement. So there's a disconnect, because if you hear somebody saying we need to talk about issues at this point, it's obviously it's too late. You know what I'm saying? Now it's just a matter of, are you trying to get Trump out now or not? If you don't want to get him out, just understand that. What do you understand? Abortion's gone, affirmative action, all those programs that everybody all that's gone. And you basically, that's what it's going to look like. Now, some people will say, well, let them be gone. We'll survive. But I'm just saying that's kind of what's going to happen. And the other part about it is upper middle class Black folks and middle class Black folks, if we're honest, there's a have and have nots thing going on. Certain people aren't affected. Like they're going to be all right, whoever's the president. Now, if you're depending on sending your child to college on a program, or you don't have access to shit, then these programs that give you access are gone. So again, if you're an upper middle class Black person, it doesn't matter that much. Your life's not going to be affected that much. If you're somebody who your child goes to the rec center and you go somebody who gets a scholarship to go to blank blank, then you will be affected. So that's again, you know what I mean? But it's almost like these are the things that we don't talk about before this point happens. So then it's just like, oh, well. And like you said, Mel, the momentum feels like, this is what I feel like. I feel like there's a lot of Black men who say F it and they're going to vote for Trump, or they're not going to vote. I think there's a lot of young people who are riding for Bernie are not going to vote. I think there's a lot of people who don't like Kamala. They ain't going to vote. So it's just going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, because we know Trump's people are going to vote. Trump people are going to be there. And it's also going to be tampered with too. So that's the other part. It's going to be tampered with. So, you know, let me step off my soapbox, because
I appreciated all of it. Kat, what you got? I know you over there weighing in your head. You on mute.
Yeah, I had muted myself because I wasn't sure where the breaking up was coming from, and I didn't want Devin to be upset with me. So, to some extent, what Marc is saying is correct. What I've found in my 20 years in politics and working in campaigns is that, and I still haven't in 20 years figured out the answer. When Democrats don't like their nominee, they don't come back to the process for the general after the primary. Republicans have been trained that voting in every election, midterms, local elections, presidential elections, is part of their civic duty as patriots. And so wherever that disconnect has come from in terms of the messaging of Democrats, the way that they deal with it is blaming Black folks. But like, you know, you saw my post yesterday, which is how I got invited here this evening. We don't even make up enough of the population to win an election for anyone, but we always are the ones who take the blame or who get blamed for it. And so, you know, it's the Bernie people who aren't going to come back. It's the people that didn't like Kamala. And we got to be real clear. The people that don't like Kamala are not all one group, right? There's different people that dislike her for different reasons. We were talking about the uprising. People that do social justice reform and activism have an issue with her time as AG in California and the things that happened in California under her watch. You know, hundreds of women who were what's the word I'm looking for? Not castrated, but they were the word is escaping me.
circumcised.
Yeah, they're unable to have children. There were parents who were arrested and did jail time for their children missing school for truancy, mostly older, sick, and minority people. You know, and then there's the people that don't trust her. I mean, we all family here. We can be honest. We know there's a part of our generation don't trust Black women that marry white men, right? We've seen it over and over again in the conversations around Eve and her husband and Serena Williams and her husband. So this isn't new for our community, or that somebody's not going to trust a Black woman who doesn't have a Black man standing next to her. And then there's a younger generation that is pushing for this progressive movement that don't feel like anybody on this Democratic ticket is progressive. And that it would just be a toned down, but more of the same version of what we got. And I don't think people realize how important it is to keep talking about that crime bill of 94. Those things had serious impact and still have serious impact, specifically on communities of color. When you look at how we're 13% of the population, but make up 85% of the incarcerated, there's a direct correlation there. All you have to do is look. But what I find most disheartening is how we turn on each other for not having the same ideologies as though, but we'll be the same people at another point in time that'll say Black people not a monolith. But we want to become a monolith when it makes us more comfortable, and then we shame each other when we can't get somebody to be on the same page as us. I mean, running in Baltimore as a Republican, right? I get called everything but a child of God. And then after that, if the people are really willing to have a conversation and I explain what conservative values are and why I'm a third generation Republican, then you start seeing little light bulbs go off, right? Like, oh, you know what? That is true. But we've just been hypnotized into this belief that there's only one holy trinity, and that's Black, Christian, and Democrat. And if you're not checking checking all three of those boxes, and you happen to be Black and Moorish American, happen to be Moorish American, Muslim, and Republican, then they want to take your blackness from you. Or if you're in my case,
Now, well, I was
Christian anymore. I was raised in the church, but if you're spiritual and Republican, then they want to take your blackness from you. And I think that's the conversation we got to have in the village about how long we're going to allow that divide and conquer strategy to continue to work.
now, Catalina. Now, here's what I think the challenge though is. Like you said, it's not the problem is. It's like it's not. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. You know, there's so many. When you say Republican, there's so many Black folks who, just like in the Democratic Party, have been paid off just to be a part of. Let's take Michael Steele for example, right? Michael Steele is a true Republican, but Michael Steele he's not a Trump fan. He's not a fan of what the Republican Party is now, you know? And I think that's the problem the Republican Party has, is that if you are Black and a Republican, you would have to be a crazy person to align yourself with Donald Trump. And so then you say, well, okay, I'm not aligning myself with Donald Trump. But the party is so in lockstep that it creates pressure. So people who know Catalina Byrd, we already know, I know you as a person. So I know your commitment to the community, your commitment to Black folks, your commitment to everything. But for somebody who doesn't know you, they put you in the box of the other Black Republicans who don't say shit when Donald Trump says racist, sexist, xenophobic, stupid stuff. Those Black ministers that align themselves with him, you know, this guy is basically supporting the Ku Klux Klan. And if I'm a Republican like Michael Steele's standing against it. But there's so many Blacks who ain't standing against it. And that's the whole problem. You can't really have that conversation, because if you ain't said nothing about all the BS the Republicans are doing, then it almost becomes your credibility shot. And so that's what Republicans are up against. And so, and again, like people always say, it's not like the Democrats are much better, but the Democrats, like you said, you have programs, you have a track record, you have the history of, like I used to say with Michael Steele back in the day when I was in Baltimore, and remember when they were elected, the Republicans the first time in Maryland, he used to say, yeah, I said, well, what party is your mama affiliated with? When your mother marched with Martin Luther King, who did your mama's friends? What party are they aligned with? And of course, it's the Democrats, because that was what that switch was. That's what the buildup of the switch to the Democratic Party after you had the Dixiecrats. So
how do we realign messaging so that we're not necessarily all for a party, but we start focusing on the issues that the politician actually represents?
It starts before the election. You don't do it now. This is what I'm saying. This ain't the time to do it. This should have been, we should have picked like you said, a Catalina Byrd to represent this, and this is what she stands for, and this is why I like her, but Catalina Byrd don't have enough money to even get her message out to the mainstream to have a conversation.
So 2 questions. So what is the appropriate time to start, right? And what type of questions do we need to ask at the beginning? The second thing is, once now we have 2 people from the party that we necessarily wouldn't have selected ahead of time, like, then now how do we proceed and go forward? Is it just really selecting the best of the worst?
Get them in there. They suck. Let's get them in there.
Mel B.
We are 82 days away from the election. If the Democrats were being honest with themselves, the way that they are trying to use all this fear mongering about wanting to get Trump out of the office, they wouldn't have had 18 of them running. They'd have had one nominee 2.5 years ago so that they could focus, do outreach, and do field. But see, the Obama effect on the political party, on the Democratic Party, is one that has killed campaigns the way that we know it. They think field is a strategy. They don't think it's a verb anymore. They don't believe in canvassing. They don't believe in going to community events. They want to call you a bunch of times, spend a bunch of money on sponsored social media posts, and send direct mail. They're not having interactions one-on-one with people, and you have to at least engage a typical voter at least 3 times face-to-face before you can even get an idea of how they're going to vote. But they got lazy after 08. And so now, right now, honestly, Trump is going to win this re-election. It don't matter if I vote for Kanye or if I voted for Joe Biden, which I would have done in 2016, right? Joe could have beaten, and I said this. I left EAA because of this, honestly, because I was sick of being told I was crazy by my male counterparts who had far less campaign experience than myself. But what I tried to spend the better part of my career explaining is that sexism runs deeper than racism.
Hold that right there, okay, because we're going to touch on that in like 2 seconds. Devin, before we go in, because this is our topic all the time about sexism running deeper than racism. Devin, did you have something that you wanted to add before me and Kat go off on a tangent?
Yeah, I wanted to highlight like the things that I saw come out of the conversation earlier, right? And I want to preface it by saying, I worked on campaigns from 2008 up until 2016. This is the first campaign cycle I didn't work. I started off organizing, and we did like presidential campaigns, state campaigns, and then a few local key campaigns, right? I did it for the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition that passed Amendment 4 that renewed or gave opportunity for returning citizens in Florida to vote. I was a part of that campaign. Worked with New Florida Majority. They had a variety of issues, right? Now, so looking at that, I'm gonna pose these questions. What I've seen is, number one, a lot of people don't see the reverberating effect that the crime bill has had on generations and communities. And to ignore that or try to push that under the rug is hurtful for the people that's still dealing with that. Like when we talk about returning citizens that can't get jobs, can't get loans, can't get housing, all that's a byproduct of that. All these destroyed families, all these kids growing up without their dad as being in their life. Like that's a child of that crime bill, right? Then another thing that we forget about is, like Marc said earlier, the Black experience in America isn't a one-way street. Like we are Americans, so our experience in America varies, right? And then when we talk about language, like we don't talk about progressive and conservative a couple times, but it means something different. Like a lot of brothers and sisters I know, they think about being progressive, they think about having the rights that the generations that came before them fought for, gave their life for, like marched for. That's not necessarily what progressive means in today's climate. Just like conservative, Kat was talking about what conservative means. Conservative doesn't necessarily mean the same thing. So I'm like, I agree with both of them. Like Marc, right? We supposed to have this conversation 2-3 years ago. So right now we'll have an informed group of people going to the polls, right, voting in their best interest. And when we talk about the issues earlier, we get to control the election. Like these politicians, they supposed to reflect our interests, not tell us what matters to us.
I think there's a couple of things I'll touch on before I pass it over. I'll touch on the whole words, right? So we all have a relationship with words. And when we put campaigns together, when we put messaging together, when we put any type of advertisement, tell a story, we are playing on the fact that we already know our target audience, right? And what relationship that target audience has with that particular word and what it means to them. So if I introduce something to an all white male audience, and then I come over here and I introduce it to an all Black female audience, I know that it's not going to register the same way to them. And people are counting on that in order for us to make decisions and take actions based on those relationships with those words. And so when we talk about messaging, a lot of times I don't think we look at that. right? I don't think we look at the fact that we all have a negative or a positive connotation with the word. I don't think that we realize the history that we have with the word, right? Because we are so used to it being embedded in our culture, we just act and we just move. And so I also go back to your first question, Devin, which was how I think Kat touched on it too, or no, or one of you guys touched on it about the 1994 crime bill. Like we're still talking about it because it's still relevant, right? So it is hurtful to those who are still dealing with it. And so is it the question, Devin, how do we get them or out to vote? How do we encourage these folks in order to show up?
Right. Like you can't just act like it didn't happen. And then what steps are we gonna take to not just say I'm sorry, but fix the wrongs? Like what type of policies we gonna put in place to end the discrimination against that group of individuals?
So my honest opinion is either person that we get in this White House are not going to speak to anything race related. They're not helping us out when it comes to anything as it relates to race, right? And if we look at us being a higher population of incarceration, that's a Black issue. Like that has been showcased as a Black issue most of the time. So to expect them to come through and sprinkle some magic or like give us some form of reparations, I just don't think it's going to happen. So my status at this point is like, so what's the next issue we want to talk about?
Now,
but I'm going to... What'd you say, Dev?
Now, I'm glad you said that because we found this out when we was doing our campaign. And it goes like right in line with messaging. Yes, we are like more like incarcerated than any other group of people, hands down. But when you talk about the actual offense, we ain't in majority of offenses.
No.
Other people have alternative sentencing. You know what I'm saying? Like probation, house arrest, suspended sentence, weekends, nights, all that type of stuff. But the F for felony itself still impacts everybody the same.
Well, I think I'm always interested, like with Black folks, especially like, okay, what do they say? The proof of the pudding is in the tasting. So why, if a foot has been on our neck for 400 years, why are we expecting a foot not to be on our neck? That's the part I don't understand. Like, yeah, that crime bill, it ain't. Yes, Kamala, Biden, the Clinton, talk about the crime bill. How many brothers are in jail based on the drug laws that the Clinton stood on in Arkansas? You know what I'm saying? So It's like, that is back to what we're talking about. That's the system. So how do you change it? You put people who reflect your ideology into office. You participate on a local level. You participate at a grassroots level. And like you said, the presidential level is a whole new ball game. But if we're not participating on a local, neighborhood, grassroots level, then we'll never get those solutions that you're talking about. And for the people who feel that way, the people who got shit on the most, why would you expect anybody to have your back? Nobody care. Like you said, you come out of prison, nobody cares. Nobody cares about you when you got a damn college degree. So why do they care if you came out of prison? So it's almost like it's 2020. We got to get over that. And you know what's funny? The real problem is we can't have real conversations. That's the real problem. Like what Bill Cosby said years ago, they got him dragged. Bill Cosby said everybody's grandfather said the same exact thing Bill Cosby was saying. Pull your pants up, take care of your children, get an education. He got dragged, and if you say anything, you'll get clipped. But that's the reality. I mean, the reality is we are, as a people, regardless, like I say, if you're in a Mercedes driving down the highway and you got your master's degree, or you're in a Mercedes driving down the highway and you got keys in the back, them cops look at you the same damn way. And even if you're a cop, they look at you the same damn way. You know, so we kind of have these kind of, I'm always like, why are the people who get, treated the worst almost the most sensitive when it comes to, when you start talking politics though, and expectations?
But it's crazy to me because I'm like, I feel the same way, Mark. Like, do you expect them to give you anything else? Like,
Nothing.
Do you really expect these people to show up for you and like offer you handouts? It's not going to happen. Like, I feel like it's two ways that it happens. Either one, we learn how to get in a room and play the game, which most of us are super hesitant about playing the game, right? In order to get into positions that actually make sense. We're like, oh, it's selling out. We're not doing this. Oh, that's just going to always like. So what are we talking about? That's how I view it. Second piece that I also think about often is like when we talk about wanting like someone to give us a break and to give us a handout, it's like, so what the hell are you doing in your current space in order to make a difference or make a change, right? Because the system is much bigger than us, right? So it's not necessarily that we're going to all go in and we're going to just break down the system tomorrow. But why does it hurt to take individual ownership and accountability? And those real conversations that you were talking about, Marc, is the accountability piece. Like
And God bless you, Devin, for being, you're one of the people who are in the trenches who got at least got the microphone and talked to those people and got their concerns. And so nobody does that. So I don't want to,
yeah.
I don't want, I sound like a Republican. No, I'm not, no, it's important. It's important. It's just that, no, like you said, it's almost like we do the accountability piece. We kind of have a tendency not to talk about, not just for those, I hate to say the least of us, but you know what I'm saying. But the character of our leadership. We don't ever talk about that. We have a leadership crisis in the Black community. Ministers, aka leaders, thought leaders. There's a character issue with these people. Again, we never really talk about it. And these people that have these shows and we see all the time and are always whatever. And privately, we know. But we know another story, but it never comes out. Nobody ever talks about it, and we never even address it. It's like something as simple as I want to have a party, and you're like, you know what? If you don't have security, somebody's gonna die. That's a damn shame. Somebody's going to die. If we have an event right now, we say, look, y'all, let's do a forum on neighborhoods, and let's have an event. If we ain't got the Nation of Islam out there, somebody's gonna die.
Listen, I'm not gonna touch it yet, Kat. I see your face. Go ahead and chime in.
I'm just laughing. First of all, Marc, ain't nothing wrong with being a Republican. It's all right if you want to sound a little conservative. That's part of being a Black man in America too. But
that's true.
You said embrace it, Marc.
No, yeah, I can't.
Like, I'm tired of the conversation, right? Like, let's not talk about it anymore. Let's create strategies too. We understand the system and how it works against us. Why are we not incorporating strategies into making a strategy that then we either overhaul the system, or because that's really the way I prefer. I'm not one of them burn my master house down people, because unless you done built me somewhere comparable to sleep tonight, don't you touch no matches around me, right? But we know how these systems work. They've been working against us. So in the same way, I mean, I think that's my biggest thing, is that the people that we're up against now ain't even that smart. Like, my previous mayor is in Alabama in jail right now for some stuff that she should have known as a Black woman she wasn't going to get away with unscathed, right? We get that's the failure of Black leadership, is we had some Black leaders that didn't give a damn about Black people. They only gave a damn about their own self-serving interests and their egos, and then they get in certain positions and they get in the room and they play the game and they forget they still Black, and then they want to play like the white boys play. We're not ever going to be able to do that, not in our lifetime, right? And it's not even something we should be aspiring to.
Right.
If we're being honest with ourselves as a community. But you look at the dumbification of America, we don't teach civics the way that we used to. I mean, this wasn't intentional, and it took decades to do it, but this was an intentional creating of a stupid and emotionally unintelligent electorate so that we can end up exactly where we are. And the only industry that was recession-proof when the economy dropped the last time was prisons. And like I said, who in those prisons? Us, right? But they own them. It is a business. So when you start looking at the effects of the 94 crime bill, the intentional lack of teaching of civics and American government and critical thinking, because that's something else that we didn't just gave it up. We're going to pray. Jesus going to fix everything. We don't have to be able to think for ourselves. We don't have to do research. We don't have to read anything more than the clickbait headline. All we got to do is just wait for Jesus to come. I'm not good at waiting on things because I am a brat and I am impatient. So I go and work for the things that I want. But we have to get our people out of this idea that they don't have to be able to think. They just have to feel, right? That we teach our children to use their words because we don't want them crying and without us knowing which cry that is, right? We after the infancy stage, we tell our children, use your words. Why aren't we telling our our brothers and sisters and our neighbors in our community use your brain, right? This is the most asinine argument, and it gets worse every 4 years, which is part of why I'm retiring. And when I wake up on November the 4th, 2020, it will have been the last election cycle that I had anything to do with. I don't want to talk about politics with nobody. I'm not going to post about it. It will be nothing but food pictures. I was going to travel, but I don't know if outside going to be safe by then. But I'm going to just cook some food and be happy and play music.
I'll ask you about that this time next year, Kat.
I'm so over it. Like, I had people on my page constantly that can't tell me a single one of Kanye's policies, right? But I posted them. And in all actuality, when you go back and read the Forbes interview, which was the most in-depth breakdown of his policies, because he never put up a website. And then you go read my website. There's only one issue that me and Kanye had different, and that is he's pro-life and I'm pro-choice, right? I'm just not going to tell nobody that they have to have a child. But when it came to the investment in minority businesses and the things that he wanted to do, we had similar platforms. And I got people on my page telling me that I need to take my medication. I'm only supporting him because I like his music. And so now you get to insult my intelligence because you can't fucking think and you refuse to read. Nah, bro, like I'm not even the one for that. That's why it's time for me.
Ooh, there's so much in that, Kat. First thing off is like, I really tell my folks, like, fuck your feelings. Like, nobody cares about your feelings. Like, your feelings will get you likes, it will get you views, but it won't get you change. Like, no one cares about your feelings. So when you're having conversations, you need to be able to separate your feelings from the facts. So, like, even though I don't know if I'm there with you with Kanye yet, however, like when it comes up to like when we're talking like, well, what policies are in place? What do they have? What plans do they have? Like, we know nothing, but we're arguing in forums that we probably shouldn't be, right? And then what's crazier about it is we won't leverage and utilize people who do know more than us to put them in some of those rooms. Or if we know that we're in the room and we can't invite them, why are we not having conversations with them first so that we understand what we're saying and are able to have an intelligent conversation based on fact, based on policy, based on, you know, not just what we heard or what we felt. Like, I was so mad. I think it was, and I didn't want to be angry, right? Because I get angry a lot because Kat knows I stay away from politics, Marc. I know enough to call my smart friends to have conversations so that they can lead me in the right direction. I'm honest, right? It ain't my bag, right? But I don't think we do enough of that, and because of that, we suffer greatly. And so it was, I think, she was in Arkansas, and she went and she was like, you know, stated this whole monologue about like why she's not going to sit there and listen to this, and everybody was like, yes, girl, say it for us, say it with your chest. And I'm like, but that's not how we get change, though. It goes in one ear and out the other. So what is the point of the argument after it's all said and done? But I'm going to go back to one of my favorite. You have something to add to that, Devin, before we move on?
I want you to move on because I want to hear what y'all going to say about this new thing. But with the knowledge piece, right? I think the reason why it's important to have people that know, and we got to be unafraid to ask, is because we need to make sure that the policies and plans people telling us are feasible, one, and number two, in a scope of authority.
That's true. All facts. So one of the things that Kat and go ahead, Kat.
Because during the primary, I'm not going to say his name, but there was a certain Democratic mayoral candidate who was running on things that were literally not feasible. He was telling everybody in Baltimore that he was going to legalize marijuana and tax it. He clearly had never read the city charter, but because he talking to hadn't read it either and didn't know what he couldn't do, you had people in droves that supported this man when every single part of his platform was a bold-faced lie. And now I'm sitting on the stage at the candidates forum, knowing there's cameras everywhere with my good head and my pearls on, trying to keep a straight face. While this man lies to my people. I mean, at some point, it just gets so infuriating. And like Mel and I have similar tempers. I try not to be mad, right? But it's but so much you can take, and it's just
because you don't know who to have the conversation with, right? So it goes to the point of like, I want to address my people and tell my people that everything that you just heard is a fallacy. Like, none of this is going to come to pass. None of this is true. They are playing on the fact that you don't do your research, you don't read, and you don't know anyone in your circle that's going to tell you anything different, right? But then when you do that and have that conversation, then it's like a consistent argument, because it's like you snatching away hope. It's because they are so hopeful that this person is going to deliver. It's like you the one coming in, and you the hope snatcher, you the dream killer, and so it gets exhausting. So then you turn your energy to the person who's actually spewing it out, right? And like, listen, I don't appreciate this, and you start going fact to fact with them, and then that gets exhausting, because again, you have the people on the other side that are living for the hope. One of the things that Kat and I talk about often, right, is that sexism runs deeper than racism. I also say that there's sexism, racism, and classism. If you suffer from all three, nobody gives a fuck about you. Like, nobody cares. You put two or more together, nobody really cares. Then you add all three, you're completely out the picture. So go ahead and talk about that whole sexism running deeper than racism, Kat.
Well, like, before I had projected that the Republicans, and I did not know that Donald Trump was going to be the nominee at that particular time in 2015. My whole thing was, the country is not going to have two historical presidencies, one behind the other, right? We're not going to go from the first black president to the first woman president. And that if they talked Joe Biden out of running in 2016 because it was Hillary's turn, they were handing the White House to the Republicans, no matter who the nominee was. And the reason is, people forget, we belong to a race of people that's only 400 and some years old, right? We were invented. We are all mutts of this country. But sexism is global, and it's in all religions. King James rewrote the Bible because he was mad with his first wife, but your grandmother still kneeled and prayed with it every Sunday. So if I'm going to be honest about what I had to deal with as a woman, then let's be honest about the electorate and the generation that's voting. They were going to trust a half-white man who was still an all-man over an all-white woman. And it was plain as day. And then they couldn't figure out how to stop Trump. Reince Priebus tried. Next thing you know, this man came and hijacked the party of my childhood. He was a Democrat till the day he decided to come steal my party. He didn't steal the election. He got elected because he was the only man on the ballot. And like, the biggest opposition I get to that truth is from black men. Black men don't want to accept the fact that they don't really want to do away with white supremacy. They want to replace white patriarchal structure with black patriarchal structure. But they still want us, black women, to be subservient and beneath them, when their true hearts and intentions can be seen in the way that they vote, speak of us, speak to us, and or don't speak to us at all. But they ain't ready to have that conversation. But it's very, very real, and it shows in every election, and we still ain't even learning nothing from it.
So I'll let the men chime in. Men, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's interesting, because I think, like, I just had an epiphany with Kat was saying, because I was raised by an amazing black woman, and I think a lot of men are raised by amazing black women, right? And so I am very, I'm not sexist, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't raised with the traditional point of view when it comes to men and women because of my mother, right? But Kat, I just had an epiphany, because the one thing I didn't understand was, as a guy raised by a single black woman, my mother, I was not the man of the house. You know what I'm saying? My mom is, I'm your mama. You're my child. I run this house. You know what I'm saying? I took care of the mice. I cut the grass. I had my chores. I did what I was told to do and expected to do. I wasn't her little man. I wasn't little man. I wasn't the male power figure in the household. And the part I couldn't understand, when I looked around me, my other friends, also raised by single women, they had, like you said, they had a mentality towards women that was that old school machismo piece. And where did they get it from? They got it from their mom. Why ain't you cutting grass? Why aren't you taking out the trash? Why aren't you taking out? They got designer underwear, designer clothes. They wasn't doing nothing. Their mom was cooking for them. I'm like, what is going on? So I think back to the system. We're talking about a system that even when the man is raised by a woman, the man takes on the old school ways of thinking. And so, like I say, I never had it, and so it's just interesting, and I marvel at it too. If I'm honest, that whole, how much time does the Black community spend with this whole damn the man being the head of the household? Lord Jesus, what does that even mean? When the reality is most Black women out earn their husband or boyfriend, especially by the time you get to be 45 or 50 years old. And so head of the household, what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? We struggle. We people have divorce over this. It's like, what are y'all talking about? So I can't disagree with the sexism piece. And to be honest, like you said, I was shocked. Now, who shocked me the most were Black women. Black women didn't vote for Hillary. Black women don't be messing with women. Black women don't like women. So,
oh yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But there's one thing too that to add in. Oh my goodness. So let's talk for real, right? So what I think as well is when it comes to being able to make decisions to stand in power, the white woman is disregarded. Like, we don't believe that they're able to handle responsibility on any level. We don't believe they have emotional intelligence collectively, right? I know some decent ones, but I sound like I have Black friends, but collectively,
yes.
Like as a society, we don't believe that white women are qualified to hold their own and to be able to show up and make decisions. We just don't see them that way. So when Hillary was up, I was like, this is never going to work, right? Because the way that we regard them, it's so crazy because people are like, oh, they're America's princess or whatever, right? But we don't believe our princess can make decisions and that she's ever going to evolve into a queen. And so, and then when it comes to the whole, the Black man, Black woman discussion, it makes my head hurt because I feel like there's no hope for humanity once I scroll through my timeline, because it's like, well, who raised these men? I'm gonna go over to your point, Marc. Who raised them, right? I get it that Black women have to take the brunt of most things, right? But when it comes to like how we show up sometimes for our children, for our sons in particular, the expectations, if they're not low, a lot of times we bring in these whack ass dudes to reign over them and to be in the household. And so if you don't expect your man to get up and go to work, what the hell makes you think your son is going to work? If you don't expect your man to treat you well, then why do you think that you're going to give him off to somebody else and that he's going to treat them well? Like, that lack of respect. I was watching, Ayana had like an episode where she had Black men in the audience and they brought their Black mamas, right? And a lot of them were saying things like she was too harsh, she was too mean, she didn't know how to talk to me, I felt disregarded, I felt like because she didn't have a relationship with my dad that she took it out with me. The irony of that is when you are trying to fill two roles, you don't have time to be the nurturer when you're trying to be the disciplinarian. To find and to strike a balance between the two is so hard, right? But no one really puts it back and say, again, I'm going to take a full responsibility that we choose these men or whatever. But then we also get flack on the other side when we don't choose these men and we go marry a white man, right?
You said marry what?
A white man. We get the flack too. So it's like, at this point in time, it's like, we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. But I do want to get back to a place where we hold each other to a higher regard, right? I am in my bubble sometimes where I am very spoiled by the Black men that are around me. I know decent guys, but when I hear my homegirls' experiences, I'm horrified. Like, I want to pull up. I put up a post today because I want to pull up. Like, I'm that friend that wants to get in my car and like, where is he at? Because this is crazy. So I don't know what the answer is. I just want us to get better at it. Devin, you talking on mute.
I love this topic. I study it. It's interesting. It boils down to our experiences. Like Marc, like, man, I'm used to strong women. Like, I can't even like be around a weak woman. I had a friend of mine told me, bruh, the stuff that you're trying to accomplish in life, you got to have a strong woman in your life, right? The thing is, I think generationally, the last couple of generations we raised, like, some of the brothers are intimidated by the sisters that got it going on because we've been conditioned to compete and not collaborate. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a household. It don't matter who bring the most money in. But if you're raised in poverty, all you thinking is dollar signs. You ain't thinking about building. You thinking about surviving, right? So we got women and families that train their daughters to be women, right? And they not raising their boys to be men. Like, because I guess some of the threats, like the real life or death threats that the young men face, not saying the young girls don't, it's a tendency to coddle these little boys. Yes. We want to dress them up and get their identity trapped into material things. So now what happens is you baby him until he turns 18, and society show him that he's a man and he's supposed to produce. And he don't know how to produce. Now you don't pawn him off on the grown woman that was raised to produce, and she got to raise your man. That's why we in the spot, in my opinion. Now I think to correct that, we got to go back to like really, really spending time training our men. Like, you will heal our sister from their hurt and trauma, right? But if they match up with another brother that done been broken, ain't never been here, all he gonna do is break her again because he don't know how to handle it.
So who's responsible for the training? That's where it comes into, like, who, we talked about this before, like, who's filling in those gaps? Like, are you going and pulling up to your nephew that you know his daddy's away, or you know his daddy ain't, out here a little challenged in his manhood, like, but you don't want to go to the house because your sister gonna have a problem with it, right? But do you pull up anyways? Like, who is taking the responsibility to stand in the gap? And I think we've moved away from village and community, right? And then I'm gonna go back to messaging. We hear all of these different things about us hating each other. We hear all of these different things about Black love. We hear all of these different things as it relates to what it is to be a provider. When the crazy part to me is that I know so many women who are earning and who are providing, and I've always laugh and tell them, I'm going to come back as your boyfriend in my next life, because if I got to just show up with my wife beater on and sit on the couch and eat good, and you're going to buy me Gucci and Louis and whatever, I'm coming back and I'm going to be with you, sis, right? So, but it's just like, who, back to the word of accountability, who's holding these people accountable, and how do we take it back? Whether it's messaging, whether it's village, community, whatever it is.
I think taking it back, I think the thing that's hard, like Devin said, is sadly, if you've been raised a certain way, it's almost like I've been married for over 20 years, and it's hard to give out good marriage advice because I picked the right one, and my wife, we both were raised the right way. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's hard to give good advice because most people are broken. Like, I know, I cared for my father-in-law. I was the one who identified their bodies, at the end, right? Mm-hmm. And as I looked at them, two people, including my mother, all of them, I just saw these are amazing people. And so we benefited from having amazing people. So why does Allison love me and believe in me so much when I lost my $300,000 job year? My $300,000 job in Baltimore in 2008, and didn't come back to a full-time job for 6 years. Why did she believe in me and not even ever make me feel like I was less than? Because she believed in her dad. She trusted her dad. She asked me, I lost $300,000. She told me, she said, baby, tell me everything's going to be all right, and I'll believe you. I said, everything's going to be all right. You know what I'm saying? But that's like, let's be honest, my mother, my mom, single Black woman, had to do it by herself. My mom was like, after a couple of years, she was like, nigga, are you all right? Why? Because my ass, I don't know. I don't know. And so, it's not to give advice. And I'm serious on that. I'm like, are you all right, nigga? Because basically, hey, if she rolls out on you, hey, but it's like, that's the part about giving advice. It's hard because you got to pick the right one. And then like we, and even the subtleties, like, when I think about my mother, there's subtleties. Like, number one, there's a respect she had. Like you said, Mel, when you're trying to be both, you can become mean, you can be bitter, you can become this, but my mother still loved on me, right? But at the same time, she didn't put up with no shit. My mother, my aunt was the kind who had boys, and when she get mad, she'd slap them in the face. My mom was like, you don't ever slap no person in the face. You don't ever hit nobody. Why would you ever disrespect a young man and hit him in the face? You know what I'm saying? She had that, but that's a special person. And then lastly, the thing she said, you know how the black mothers always wonder, like, how do I get my son not to go with white women? My mom did it masterfully. She said, she didn't say, don't bring no white women home. She said, son, you see how hard I work, right? And I hope that you'll provide another black girl, you know, with all that I've taught you and all that we've gone through. I would hope that you would give another black girl an opportunity to be your wife or be your girlfriend, because these white girls already had that. So my whole life, in the back of my mind, you know, oh, Becky coming around. Nah, I ain't gonna do that. You know what I mean? But and it wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, but that's the thing the community's missing though. We don't have that. So when you got all these broken folks, it's just hard because everybody's just trying to survive. And like, lastly, I'm sorry, I'm talking so much.
No, go ahead.
Katrina, you know this. Kat, you know this. I'm in Baltimore over by the skating rink. I see this little kid with his grandmother walking down the street. He was going too slow. She turned around and hauled off and slapped him hard as shit. Bow! Said, come on, right? And I thought to myself, now he's 18, 19 years old. And when he's getting into with his girlfriend, he slaps her. And when he slaps her, she said, why you slap me? You don't love me. He said, yes, I do. I love you. My grandmother slapped me and she loved me. You know what I mean? That, like you said, Devin, experience. Like his experience was, hey, getting slapped in the face could be a sign of love. You know, for me, my mother's don't ever touch. A man ain't never supposed to put his hands on a woman, regardless of the case. If you feel like you're going to, you need to leave. You know, so you're right. It's like our experiences and then those people we come in contact with are how we end up raising people and take them to the next level. And that's the challenge I think a lot of our community has, is they didn't have those people in their lives.
And I also think that sometimes we struggle with that. Like, people are really surprised to hear that I'm submissive. I was raised to be somebody's wife, right? Like, I was raised that way. When you say that in a lot of forums, people look at you crazy. But no, I was raised to be somewhat spoiled. I was raised very traditional. Now, have we modified and tweaked what my version of traditional was? Absolutely. After 12 years of marriage, right? You find a common ground and you kind of talk about some things. But it's like that image and that role that the men and the women in your life plays is huge. Like, I was raised around really strong women, but they brought you plates. They made sure that the house was clean and the kids were cooked for. They might hit your pockets. They're not cooking on Friday, Saturday, but they're going to come back on Sunday and they expect to go out. Like, I was raised in that manner, right? And then I've also seen how the men regarded the women in my family. So like, even when a dude will come in, because we all date a loser or three, right? And but when you see him come in, you like, I can't take you home, no, right? Like, you can't be permanent. Like, I can't introduce you to my daddy and my uncles. And like, this ain't for you, right? I'm gonna have fun and I'm gonna put you back. Like, and that's it. But I think that image is so important. The biggest compliment is when I hear my nephews or my god brother or like my son say, like, nah, ma, she got to be at I got a standard. And knowing that I set that standard, like, it's hella dope. But the verdict is still out. I don't know if he's going to come home with he's out there in York College. He might surprise a chick and decide that he want to try something different. I just keep telling him, don't bring me no bum chick home that also can't hold you down and be your backbone when needed. Like, she got to be all of those things. But so far, so good. He like them black and smart. I love it.
Bum chick.
No bum chick.
You know, it's funny for me because, you know, I've been a widow for 13 years, right? And so there's an expectation that some people didn't know me when I was a wife. They really think that I am like ready to fight all the time. And then because I spent so much time on as a pundit, dating was hard because the first time you disagree, then it's, oh, you're not on Square Off, Cat. You're not on one of them shows. And I'm like, yo, girl, I'm not even beefing with you. I'm just saying I don't agree. You can take that bass out your voice. But so I have my two biological children, but I also have two of the village's children too, right? I have a 19-year-old I've had for the last 4.5 years who needed a home, right? Because that's what we really are talking about. We got raised right because we came from homes, not houses that people dwelled in and coexisted. And I have a 16-year-old, and I've only had him for since March. And so, the conversations I have with those two boys are different than the ones that I've had since birth, because I have to recognize the trauma that they had and then deal with their healing differently. So like the 19-year-old, when he first got there at 15, everybody just kept saying, oh, you're spoiling him, you're spoiling him. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? But I knew the abuse he came from. So I can't talk to him or wow him about the way I might my son, who I know knows better, because this baby wasn't taught any better. Now, 4.5 years later, I don't have to have the same arguments with him that I had when he was 15 about simple stuff like taking out the trash and, cleaning up behind himself. He's going to still leave a shoe in my living room, but I leave my wigs on the coffee table, so I can't be mad. So I'm going to just take that. But what I noticed when I had my daughter, and I never wanted any girls for the reasons of sexism, is that the other side of her family had all these values that they thought they were going to impart on my child that made her a woman that didn't have nothing to do with being a woman. It was her, they wanted to build her identity around her ability in the future to keep a man, right? Like they were talking to my 2-year-old about color, what colors to wear, what colors were girl colors and boy colors, and what girls do and what girls don't do. And she was 2. And so, needless to say, they're not in our lives no more, because I ain't got the time for that kind of indoctrination and having to undo that. But aside from what we're teaching young men, there's a contingency that has taught women that their only value is the ability to keep a man. And then when I am in Annapolis trying to get certain domestic violence laws changed, especially when I talk to older sisters that are survivors, they were taught to even take the abuse, that they had earned it, that they had deserved it in some way, and that even if they didn't, having a husband was more important than their own safety. And that's why the number one cause of death of Black women that's not medical in the United States right now is domestic violence, because people were still passing those things on generation to generation, and they all of them ain't old now. Some of them in their 20s right now that get up and get dressed and do their hair to go nowhere just so that they look a certain way when a man come home from work. And that's what they built their value in. And then they don't understand why their sons have no respect for them, but their sons have not seen them do anything besides be cute. And their daughters don't have any respect for them unless they convince them to be like them, because their daughters have never seen them stand up for themselves, follow a dream, go to work, earn anything. We have to be conscious of what we show our children as much as we say to them, because they're watching. And boys, they want women like their mothers, but daughters tend to want to be like their mother or better, right? My daughter studies me. She Sailor knows. She can tell you everything, and it's funny because she's 7 now, so she's a little bit more articulate, right? And I listen to her talk to people, and she'll be like, "Well, my mommy's running for the mayor because she wants to fix Baltimore because I have to grow up here." I never told her that, but she heard that, and that's what seeing the campaign means to her. Whereas my son could care less. Okay, he like, "Mom, I voted for you, but I'm about to go to this party," and he goes on about his business. He believes in me, but as long as I'm safe and protected, he gonna go off and chase and pursue his dreams. My daughter, on the other hand, is absorbing it all. She wants to see, like where she fits in this, and that she is a part of what I'm doing, and that she's valued. And I just don't think enough girls or boys get that kind of foundation at home, where they are taught that their value is more than how many women they can sleep with, or what man they can keep, or what that outfit looks like. And it's sad, because those are the same people, some of them, that was shaming Cardi and Meg last week when WAP dropped, right? This woman is married. So even
snap.
regardless of what she's saying, she's talking about screwing her husband. And there's a bunch of men that ain't got no life. So women with no husbands all got something to say about the downfall of the community. Well, that screwing your husband is going to be the downfall of the community. What is not having one do?
So you have said so much in that one look, so we gotta talk about the things, because I have similar experience with the things. The first one being, I have a biological son and I have a biological daughter, and I have 2 bonus of each 2, right? That I raised up, right? And so the girls they study you. Like they would intimately like study you. Like my daughter can tell you like when I'm annoyed, when I'm angry, when I'm happy, when I'm sad, when I had my favorite snack, like when I'm coming home from work, how my day was at work without me saying a word. Like she models all of my behaviors when it comes to like closing a deal and being about her business. She can gather you and get you together, and like to the point where I have to like be mindful of who she is, because when she's dealing with other people, they don't know how to take an 8-year-old that's like, I thank you so much for this, but I don't really eat this, or this is not what I really do. Or when she goes to school, she'll say, Mommy, now what job do you want me to tell the people that you have? Like, because do you want me to say that you're a speaker? Do you want me to tell them that you have your own business and are an entrepreneur? Do you want me to tell them that you do? Which one? Or I could just tell them all of them, right? Like she gets excited about that. When I plan events, I have her right there with me. Why? Because I want her to learn not only like the things that I do in the tangible skills, but I also want her to know that it's okay to be her, because we have a certain energy, right? I'm going to just call us bossy. That's what we are. We're going to own it. We're going to walk into it, and it'll be great, right? And so teaching her how to shake the table. So I can't teach her how to shake the table, but then try to mute her on the other end. And there's no way, even though I'm married, she sees me with her dad all the time. I make sure that she understands, my niece as well, that you are your own woman. Like this is an addition to who you are. Like mommy knows how to chase a bag, daddy knows how to chase a bag. If mommy takes this hair off today and decides that she wants to wear an afro, daddy's going to appreciate this afro one way or the other. You know what I mean? Like there's some times when mommy's not going to cook, daddy's going to have to figure it out and get you some cheeseburgers or something going. Like all of those things are a part of our lifestyle and things that we talk about, because I can't have her, like Kat said, is to grow up with that. Now, the opposite side of the spectrum, right? It's like when videos like WAP, I'm not going to let my 8-year-old get in the room with me and I'm going to bust splits in it open in front of her. However, as a grown ass woman, and when my 19-year-old hears certain things, like don't be cheap, don't be free, and don't be easy. But when it comes to you deciding that you want to do whatever with your special person, because you may not choose marriage, right? But when you decide that you want to be with your special person as you age and evolve, doing a split or 2 ain't never hurt nobody, right? If you decide that you don't cook or clean and he's happy with it and you do a mean takeout, do a mean takeout. But all of your happiness, everything that you bring to the table, you need to be honest and upfront about what your desires are, what your needs are. Either that person can meet those needs or they can't. And that's cool. Find someone else who values them. And it ain't these Negroes up and down the timeline talk about you ruining the culture. Like, personally, I feel if more married women, particularly, had a little more sex, talked about things a little bit more, you know what I mean? Talked about intimacy. If these sisters weren't so into a bag or into the Lord that they couldn't talk about anything else and realize that there's a variation of things that they're good at and that they enjoy and that they love, and we would be more open about that, I think we would get a lot further. Sometimes people question some of the things that I speak and say out of my mouth because I am a person. As a person, I am multifaceted. If I choose to go to the trap in the church, that's my business. If I choose to go to the strip club in the church, that's my business, right? And that doesn't make me less qualified to show up in a boardroom for you. And it doesn't make the Lord not going to decide not to answer my prayers because I decided that with my husband, I was going to do some grown up things, you know, and put the other wig on and be somebody else. You know, I'm just saying.
I had, you know, having 3 daughters with the WAP video. It's so funny because, you know, I try to walk a lot, you know, working in radio, working in media, they have, you know, they're more savvy than most. I mean, both parents in media, you know, having real conversations their whole life, they could freely talk about this kind of stuff at the kitchen table. And I think it was funny. I was getting ready to go back and dispute my original take. You know what I mean? Because we're talking about it. So
Right.
I wanted to establish some things here. Now, Allison says, which is true, the video is a conceptual video. So it's not just busting it wide open. There's a whole storyline. True. My 19-year-old loves Meg the Stallion, and she's in college. She's in college. You know, so it's kind of like Meg the Stallion kind of has the college girls almost like, yeah, you could do this and also be smart, and we can do this within whatever. And so my thing with her was she, you know how it is when you're that age, you just start saying what everybody else is saying to defend your point, but it's not really like she was saying, you know, what's wrong if they want to get the bag and so on. So stop. Getting the bag, just getting the bag, prostitutes just get the bag, you know. So don't say, you know, don't just say getting the bag is a reason to do anything. You know what I mean? Give me a perspective of what you think about. I was trying to have her go deeper in the analysis, right? But and so I didn't say to them, hey, I disapprove of the video. I really try to ask them specific questions on why you like or dislike the video. And isn't this the same thing that men, like a male director would do? And they came back with no, and they had their perspective on why, because it was a woman's point of view and this and that. I was curious if a male or female directed the video. That's a question.
That's a question.
And then you start talking about feminism. Feminist, being a feminist. Anytime you open up the feminist conversation, but the imaging is the stereotypical, what do you call it when you make objectification of a woman, when you objectify, when you're wearing an outfit that a man would put you in to make you a sex object, it's hard to have a conversation about, you know, feminists, because it's almost like that's the opposite of what feminist is. Feminist is basically saying, I'm not using my titties and my ass to make a point. I'm more than just titties and ass. I want men to see me more than that. So these are the kind of things that we have. But again, as we were talking, I never did say I don't like the video, I don't like the concept, whatever. I just asked questions, and I was just like, So then when I got away from it, I was going to come back and say, oh, my big issue to the kids was, here's my only issue with not just this video, but hip hop in general. My issue is most kids don't have parents like us and aren't raised in a situation where from day one, we had these conversations and we allowed to give you perspective and understanding. My biggest concern is for the kids that don't have that. And that was my biggest concern when I worked on the radio with hip hop music, was that if you got parents, conscientious parents is one thing. Most of these kids in Baltimore did not have that, you know, and I say most of them, but a lot of kids didn't. And the difference, I'm 54. There was a time when you could only play that kind of music after midnight, or you had the day party. Now we play it all the time and it's available all the time. So I think the real challenge is kids who, like you said, 8-year-olds who are sitting around watching this video. I don't know how I feel about that, but that's my take on the wet ass pussy video.
It's funny because if it makes you feel better, my dad, I'm almost 40, be 40 in March, and he would not appreciate me. He's gonna call me probably after this because he's probably watching.
Oh no! Wait a minute.
To have a whole conversation with me.
Sorry, Dad, about saying the word. Sorry.
He doesn't care. He's old school gangster, right? He OG, right?
Oh, he OG.
He OG, but the fact that I am always going to be his protected piece. My sisters are always going to be the protected piece, right? So for him, we don't do any of that. So I try to get him to look. Let's talk about the other women, though. Don't consider us. consider the audience, the others. But even with what's interesting is, give you a quick story. I was on a train with my daughter, and someone was playing a radio, right? And what I've noticed is that, and I asked him to turn it down. I'm like, hey, can you turn it down because of the language? And I thought I was going to have to fight him, and I was going to try to figure out how I was going to have to do this with my daughter, because he was like, turn it down for what? I'm like, because she's like 6, and I don't want to have the follow-up conversation as it relates to the words, right? So he got a whole little attitude. I guess I'm going to turn it down, these bougie. Yeah, and I had to like keep my composure because I'm with my daughter, right? But I said all of that to say a lot of times people assume that that's the environment, right? So when we talk about the 8-year-old that normally doesn't have the guidance, is that the environment, right? And so that's why I'm going to go back to, I think it's super important for us to show up and to be examples, right? I can't be in your home with you, right? But if I live next door to you and I'm your neighbor, I should be speaking and we should be forming a relationship. Going back to that community and village thing, as your teacher, I want to be able to show you an example. I want you to be able to see another variation of what you saw, because that's all we're talking about, right? Because where I said I'm not going to show my 8-year-old that, she sees me as the example. Sailor sees Cat as the example. So even when she gets presented with this, she's like, I got choices, right? And this might just be a fun song. So before we close out, Devin, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Well,
How does your daughter, Devin? See, look at him. How does your daughter, Devin?
she
She 11. So she at
She
that middle
11.
school age.
This
When they
year,
bought a
sixth
friend
grade.
phone.
Right, exactly. Because she already know I don't play that. At all. Watch this. But I'm such a fixture in her life. When I used to go pick her up from daycare, the little boys in the class say they go her daddy. For sure. Y'all know I'm in her life. I'm gonna be there. And we got a standard. What I'm trying to show her in relationship to that, because like what you said, Mel B, I want her to be a leader. I want her to be an independent thinker, and I want her to weigh her thoughts. When I started paying it, because before I never paid attention to the lyrics to songs on the radio until I heard her singing the song. I was like, wait a second. They talking about this, that, and I say, hey, like that ain't the game. Like your daddy lived that. So some of the stuff that you see me go through is as a result of that. You understand what I'm saying? So think about the words to the song that you're listening to and understand that that's entertainment. I'm the model in the house. Um, Hearing y'all sisters talk though made it more urgent for me to make sure that I have strong women models in her life, because I'm dad, but I got to make sure I got some women in my village that can be a model of what a woman should be and should do. So
And the
like you
whole
said,
reason that
she will
I
have
moved to
those
Baltimore, because
choices.
I lived in Baltimore, then I had moved back to upstate New York. And the reason I moved back to Baltimore is because I needed my kids not just to see me, but a variation. At the time, it was only one. My son to see a variation of men. If he wanted to grow up and be the best damn trash garbage man that he wanted to be, he could see it. If he wanted to grow up and to be a politician, he could see it. If he wanted to grow, like, we were everywhere, right? And so that was the whole point for me to make a move. So I think we also have to, I think that's not just for, you, Devin, or your daughter, that's for everybody. Because your child may have your ways and they may have some of things that they take away from you, but they don't necessarily want to be you. Like, my daughter is a dope artist. Didn't come from me. Skit might have got from my great aunt in them, but it didn't come from me, right? So putting her around other Black female artists is like a dope thing for me. I have no idea where to find them. We just go randomly do things, right? And they just and hope that they show up. But like, I think that variation is important. Everybody wants $1 million baby, right? Everybody wants the one that we could be like, yo, they didn't took us now. They done sold the moon. They done got real estate up there. We all want that. Yep. However, we have to be able to meet our children where they are. And so back to Marc and Kat's point and yours, Dev, is like having those conversations where you don't react, where you listen and you respond with questions. It allows you to understand how your children think so that you can communicate in a way that's most effective. Because even with all 4 of the kids that were, with us, like, they all are different people. They think different. They move different. And so like that whole one size fit all kind of parenting and you all get in trouble for this or that, it just doesn't work. So taking the time to know them, understanding their baseline and have those conversations is critical. All right, as we wrap up, if there's one thing that you want people to take away from this conversation, what would it be? Let's start with you, Marc.
Ooh, girl. I would say take a moment in this crazy world right now with the, like you say, uprising coronavirus, figuring out how to pay your bills, trying to not gain weight, I would say stop, and tomorrow morning when you just wake up, close your eyes and remind yourself how much you love yourself. Because I think we always think about other people, or we get so caught up in our stress or what we're going to do next, we forget that we have to love ourselves first. So I would say love yourself first tomorrow. The first thing, remind yourself to love yourself. That's what I say.
Love it. And how can people find you, and what are you working on right now, Marc?
So on Monday, we start on a new digital platform, Allison and Marc in the afternoon. It's 100 Hip Hop and RNB.FM. Just follow me on Facebook. You'll see that. That, and also Delicious Beverage. I need to get Mel B. I want to get everybody's address. I want to send you guys a gift box. Childhood friend that created this delicious beverage, and we're getting ready to do a soft launch. And I want to. I'll be working as the executive for that. So that's the two big things. And then and Marc Clarke. Just go to Marc Clarke on Google me, baby. And
don't it feel good when you like just Google me?
Just Google me.
Just Google me. And I love a good gift, so I'll send you our information.
Yes.
Love a good gift. Catalina, Byrd, how can the people? What's your one thing you want people to take away, and then how can people find you?
I think the one thing to take away is that this election is not the doomsday scenario that they want you to believe. We did not die in the last 4 years under Trump. We're not going to die in the next 4 years under him because he's going to win re-election. But just start paying attention to how are they intentionally gaslighting you? Like, are you reading? Are you thinking? Or are you intentionally being made to feel so that you are destabilizing in your judgment making? Right? That would probably be the biggest thing as it relates to the election. As it relates to just the world in general. Have a lot of sex, drink a lot of water, do what makes you feel good, what makes you happy, and trust the people around you. Keep the people around you that's going to be honest with you. If everybody around you agree with you, you're not even in the right room, shorty. And I like gifts too, Marc, so I'm going to send my address.
Appreciate you. How can people stay in contact with you?
I'm myself on all platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Much like Marc, you can Google me too. You might find a website or something. I don't know what comes up at this point. My son, he Googles me once a month and tell me when new stuff populates. So I'll just wait for my next text message. I'll be doing that.
Love it. Devin, same question.
I say, like the church say, we got a responsibility to empower. Y'all talked about it earlier, accountability. What are you doing? Don't give me a fish. Teach me how to fish, and I feed myself.
How can people find you, Devin? What are you working on?
I'm Turning the Curve coming soon. The book Turn the Curve coming soon. That's major. Working with dads, and you can find me everywhere, and you can even Google me at Devin D. Coleman, DEVIN D. Coleman, like the cooler.
Look at these educated, accomplished Black folks. Like, you know what? Don't even worry. You see the name down there. Just go ahead, Google me. Something gonna pop up. You can stay connected that way. I got you. I love it. I live to this.
I'm still running for mayor, so I guess I can't retire if I win, but Republicans in this city, so this is an uphill battle. But technically, I'm still running for mayor. That's what I got going on.
That's you do. You do. One thing that I would like everyone to take away is when we're out here having discussions, is it's okay to have feelings and emotions, but don't get caught up in your feelings and emotions. State facts, state logic, do some critical thinking and researching on your own before we start regurgitating messages, right? So if there's something that you think that you are so passionate about, I challenge you to go research it to see after you've done your research, is this something that you still are in line with? And thank you all. Most of you are probably here on my Facebook page at Mel B. Cook. I'm working on my YouTube page because my 8-year-old said it's real lame. She said I need to get it together. I tried to explain to her that I post unlisted videos. She wasn't really a fan, but she did say, "Ma, I'ma like it anyway because I'ma support you and help you get it together." Right? So that I could do better in these streets, like her cookie swirl C or one of those other people that she follows. Thank you so much for your time tonight. If there's any questions, please feel free to reach out. Send me a message, drop it in my DM. You can drop it under this post. Love you in real life. Talk to you next week.